I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Rakah Kwadash. Double honors unto our apostle elders, which rule Great Millstone Well, and which taught us the truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. May you endure unto the end. Shalom wa abab abal. So today is September 11th, 2025, the year that we hope for judgment, the destruction of the oppressors of the Israelite, starting with the so-called white race and their kingdom, and the salvation to the Israelites, the ones that believe in Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. This is our hope for 2025. All right. And this year, on September 11th, they tell you to remember September 11 attacks, right? Every 9/11, no matter what year it is after 2001, they always tell you to remember and never forget. All right. But they declared a war on terror in 2001, and the world is a more dangerous place in 2025 because the true terrorists of the world is the so-called white race, Esau, Edom, which terrorize and take away the peace of the earth. All right. So it says September 11 attacks, a series of coordinated terrorist attacks, killing close to 3,000 people using 4 aircraft hijacked by 19 members of Al Qaeda. And remember, just recently, Biden supplied Al Qaeda with a bunch of weapons, right? They could have destroyed them, but instead they left them behind for Al Qaeda just recently. 2 aircraft crashed into the World Trade Centers, which we all know that is a lie, and it was something else that took these buildings down because they were built with exo structure, which was solid concrete and steel. And if you ever seen a car hit a medium in the highway, which a car is created to have an accident, and it gets crushed at 100 miles an hour. So how would a plane penetrate an exoskeleton building, right? When a plane isn't made to crash, all right? So it's very soft and it wouldn't have done the damage that it did, okay? So it's it was an actual sacrifice on a large scale to bring forth their war on terror, which really they caused terror, the so-called white race. When you look up who got the insurance claim on these buildings, it was an Edomite, a so-called white man, a small hat, big nose, counterfeit. All right, and the ones that know, they know what I'm talking about. It says, all right, 2 aircraft crashed into the World Trade Center in New York City. A third crashes into the Pentagon in Arlington County, Virginia, and a fourth into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Which the Pentagon one, you could look it up, where reporters were saying there was no uh, evidence of a plane. All right, which there's other ways to do this, than a plane. Okay, and they even arrested our apostle elders this at this time, right? Which they were able to get out of jail and sue the government of that area for false claims that they were guilty of any form of terror. All right, because really, the true terrorists of the earth is the so-called white race, the red devil, Esau, Edom. All right, so I pulled up a historical essence of September 11th, which it brought forth 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2001, which It says the global impact U.S. response sparked the war on terror, including military operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. Security overhaul led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, stricter immigration policies, and expanded surveillance powers. So they used these opportunities of chaos to bring forth their new world orders. It says cultural shift fostered a new era of fear, patriotism, and political polarization. Air travel and public spaces became heavily scrutinized. All right. So the the impact that the destruction of the Twin Towers and those other couple places that they claim were part of the plan of these so-called terrorists of Al Qaeda, all right, allowed the so-called white race to bring forth more draconian law. Okay, so right here it says, yes, I put America armed Al Qaeda. You can see it. It says, yes, the U.S. provided arms and funds to anti Soviet fighters or Mahadin in Afghanistan during the 1980s through Operation Cyclone, which included some leaders who later became integral to Al Qaeda through the CIA. Did not directly arm Osama bin Laden or Al Qaeda itself. The U.S. also indirectly supported some of the organizations and individuals that contributed to Al Qaeda's growth, such as Jalaluddin. I can't even say the names, but you see the point that the government of the United States funded these terrorist groups, right? And when these terrorist groups supposedly knocked down the Twin Towers, the U.S. government used that opportunity to take away more freedoms from the own people of the U.S., right? Their citizens. They removed more freedoms and brought forth more draconian law, which they called war on terror. All right. So right here, I put in Google AI search. Is the world more dangerous in 2025 than in 2001? And it says, well, in 2001 is often remembered for September 11th, 9/11 attacks. A broad look at global data suggests the world in 2025 faces more and complex dangers than 2 decades ago. Decades are 10 years, and it's been 2 decades since 2001. And it's more dangerous, all right, than 2 decades ago, all right? Why? And it's because the so called white race is ruling and they take peace from the earth. All right, so it says in the scriptures, Psalm 64 and 8, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. All right, so the so-called white race, their own tongue, Esau Edom, is gonna tell on themselves. All right, they telegraph every move they make. All right, so I'm gonna share these two clips from Full Spectrum. It's called Full Spectrum Survival. I like to call it Skinhead News. All right, because this Edomite here, he shows his true colors if you watch his videos. All right, but he brings up some relevant points. All right, and I'm gonna play two clips out of the two videos that he brought out today on September 11th, 2025. And just as the prophecy says, their own tongue shall fall upon their head, and eventually their allies are going to flee from them and actually turn upon them and devour America with nuclear missiles, according to biblical prophecy. All right. Now, he's going to talk about Maduro, which Trump is leading a war against Venezuela and its president, And he's going to tell you why this is happening, Maduro.
The U.S. administration, dead or alive. He's here speaking out against what is happening. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Muchas cosas.
Now, he says what I told you 2 weeks ago. The United States of America is shoring up its oil capacity. We're ready for that big war with China, but in order to do so, we need to be able to produce our own steel, which you've already seen the administration move back into that ground. We need to produce a lot more ammunition than we have been, especially to make up for what was being given to Ukraine. I have warehouse after warehouse on a list in the USA that are running 24 hours a day at 100% capacity to churn out as many bullets and large artillery that we have the capability to do so. They're doing this with the Department of War because China right now is running warehouse after warehouse, making missiles and drones at a amount that we will never be able to catch up with. We would need every working American to volunteer their time after they get home from their 9-to-5 job to go into a warehouse to oversee the labor that is needed to make up for what communist China and that slave labor capacity can do. Nicolas Maduro says the United States of America is there for oil. They're looking for many things, he says first. But first of all, oil, not drug trafficking. Trump wants oil. They want gas. Venezuela, according to Maduro.
And really, if they were pursuing drug traffickers, they'd have to look at the bankers of America. Because one of the biggest drug seizures that they found was on J.P. Morgan ships. See, in 2019, a record-setting $1.3 billion worth of cocaine was seized from the container ship. All right? And they didn't blow that up, right? This is a banker, right? A banking institution that is importing drugs, which Maduro reveals this.
He says this will happen to the end. We will stop the poisoning of American people. So he's getting all of our soldiers ready for some big conflicts coming. Maduro, I showed you some video in this morning's broadcast, and if you haven't seen that yet, please make sure that you go check it out. So I've got Nicolas.
Which, that was the video I just showed you where Maduro said that America is only going to war with Venezuela to try to steal their oil.
Maduro, the leader of Venezuela here. These are dangerous words that he's saying. He's telling the world that 85% of the billions of dollars that come throughout America annually from the international drug trafficking operations takes place in the American banking system.
Which I just showed you, the banking system under J.P. Morgan, which you have their bank called Chase. In 2019, a record-setting $1.3 billion worth of cocaine was seized from the container ship. All right? So he's telling the truth, Maduro, that really the American bankers that fund the president, right? They lobby the president with money. All right? The biggest drug dealer is the so-called White House. All right? This is why they find drugs in the so-called White House.
Banking system. He says the real cartel, the real gang, is Trump and the U.S. American government. Now
which there's movies made about this. It's called Kill the Messenger. This movie is more of a documentary. It's a true story. It's called Kill the Messenger. An overview, journalist Gary Webb, which is played by Jeremy Reiner, happens upon a story that not only leads to the origins of America's crack epidemic, but also alleges that the CIA was well aware of the dealers who were smuggling cocaine into the U.S. and using the profits to arm Nicaraguan Nicaraguan rebels. Despite warnings to halt his investigation, Webb keeps digging and uncovers a conspiracy with explosive implications. As a result of his findings, Webb's career, family, and life came under threat. But he's dead now. All right, but it destroyed his whole life because they took his job away, took his credibility away, and eventually his wife left him with the kids, and eventually he died. All right, which he wasn't the only one. There was another one, a DEA agent called Kirk. All right, let me look him up real quick. Which this his name was Kiki. All right, and when you go into his story, another agent discovered that he was undercover and he was dealing to the cartel. All right, it says stories alleging that a Drug Enforcement Administration DEA agent was killed by the U.S. government to protect a drug cartel. All right, so they're going to say this is a conspiracy theory, but it doesn't mean it's a lie. Referred to conspiracy theory surrounding the 1985 murder of Special Agent Enrique Kiki Camarena in Mexico. While Camarena was tortured and killed by drug traffickers with the involvement of corrupt Mexican officials, some have alleged that CIA was complicit in his death. But there was another agent that was undercover and he found out. All right, he found out he was friends with Kiki. There's documentaries on this. All right, so the number one terrorist, all right, and drug supplier in the world is the so-called white race in America, starting with the White House. All right, and this is why the end of America is going to be nuclear destruction, because it's the most wicked country in the world. And it's the whore that rides the beast, and the beast is the European Union, and they're already breaking apart because according to prophecy, the European Union, they're going to use NATO, which they have the UN, and they're going to become allies with Russia and BRIC nations, and they're going to shoot missiles on America from every angle. This is the judgment for this great whore, America, aka Babylon the Great. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel, wa abal babal.